The wind howled across the royal plains, carrying with it a strange, sharp scent that made the beasts in the stables restless. Night had fallen like a dark curtain over the royal palace, and the stars above seemed pale and distant, unable to light the danger that lurked nearby. The royal eggs lay in their special chamber, warm under layers of soft moss and protective covers. They were the last hope of the royal line, fragile and precious. If anything happened to them, the entire kingdom would be in danger. All around the palace, the alien predators prowled. They were huge, terrifying creatures with teeth that gleamed like knives in the faint moonlight. The palace guards had tried everything to stop them. They had stationed the strongest beasts, those trained since birth to protect the eggs. But every night it was the same. One by one the guardians failed. Some ran at the first sign of danger. Some were eaten before the guards could reach them. Others simply vanished, leaving only destruction behind. Fear had settled deep in the hearts of the royal court. In the stables, the beasts themselves were uneasy. They had been chosen for their size, strength, and ferocity, but tonight, even they seemed unsure. Their eyes darted toward the shadows, muscles tense, claws scratching the floor. They growled low in their throats, a warning and a question at the same time. The humans and aliens who cared for the eggs had never seen the beasts behave like this. Something was coming, and it was unlike anything they had faced before. The palace halls were quiet, too quiet. Servants whispered in corners, eyes wide with worry. The royal advisors debated endlessly, but none of their plans worked. Magic shields, energy barriers, reinforced cages, nothing could stop the predators from breaking through. Each morning the chamber was a mess. Broken moss, claw marks, scorched stone. Sometimes the eggs themselves were cracked, sometimes missing for hours before being returned by frightened servants. Panic had started to spread through the palace. In the midst of this chaos, a young human stable boy named Joran moved quietly through the stables. He was small and wiry, not like the guards or the powerful alien warriors, but he carried himself with a calm that no one else seemed to have. His brown hair was messy, his hands were rough from work, but his eyes were sharp. He had watched the failures of the night before and the fear in the beast's eyes. He had seen the royal court wring their hands in despair, hoping for a miracle that might never come. Joran paused at the doorway to the chamber where the eggs lay. He could hear the soft hums and pulses from within, the faint heartbeat of life. They were beautiful in their own strange way, glowing slightly in the dark. No one had dared approach them after the last attack. The strongest guards avoided the room at night, terrified of what might happen. But Joran didn't feel fear. Not the kind that paralyzed. He felt a strange connection, as if the eggs themselves were calling to him, asking for help. The court was gathered, pacing nervously in the outer hall. The royal advisor spoke again, voice tight. "We have tried everything. Every guardian, every spell, every weapon. None have survived the night. Perhaps the eggs are cursed." Whispers spread like wildfire. The idea of a curse chilled everyone, but Joran only listened quietly. He had an idea, small and simple, but no one would take him seriously. "I'll stay with them tonight," he said suddenly. His voice was soft but steady. The court froze. The advisor turned, eyebrows raised. "You? A human boy? You cannot possibly survive the night beside the eggs. The predators, they will tear you apart." Joran nodded, his eyes fixed on the chamber. "Maybe the beasts can't protect them. Maybe all the weapons and spells won't help. But I can stay. I can try." He did not boast, did not show fear. He simply accepted the danger as if it were another task in the stables. There was laughter at first, cruel and sharp. The court could not imagine a human boy standing where the strongest creatures had failed. "This is madness," said one of the alien nobles. "He will die before midnight. The eggs are doomed and so is he." Joran ignored them. He stepped into the chamber carrying only a small lantern. The warmth of the eggs touched his hands, and he whispered softly, almost without thinking, "I will protect you. Don't be afraid." He placed a blanket around the eggs and sat close, ready to face whatever came. Outside, the wind moaned, the predators prowled, and the night grew darker and colder. For the first time in many nights, the chamber was silent except for the soft sound of Joran's voice and the faint pulse of the eggs. Outside, the monsters circled. The royal beasts were restless but hesitant. Something about the human, his calm presence, seemed to confuse them. The palace waited with bated breath. The night was far from over, and the threat was real, but in that moment, the smallest and most unexpected guardian had arrived. Joran looked at the eggs, and the corner of his mouth lifted in a small, brave smile. The court could mock him all they wanted, the beasts could roar and snarl, but the boy would not move. He would stay. He would watch. And perhaps, just perhaps, he could do what no one else had. The chamber was quiet, but the silence was heavy. Joran settled himself beside the royal eggs, placing a small blanket around them for warmth. The soft glow from the eggs lit his face, and he could see the cracks and ridges on their smooth shells. Each one was unique, delicate, and full of life. He whispered softly to them, words he wasn't even sure they could understand. "I'll stay with you tonight. Nothing will hurt you while I'm here." Outside, the wind screamed across the palace walls. The predators prowled just beyond the gates, their eyes shining in the dark. Joran could hear the faint scrape of claws on stone, the low growls and distant howls. Every now and then, a branch would snap, or the earth would tremble slightly beneath their heavy steps. The palace had never been so tense, not even during war. The court had given up on hope, but Joran had not. The beasts that had once guarded the eggs watched him from the shadows. They were large and powerful, muscles rippling beneath scaly or furry hides. But tonight they did not move. Their eyes followed Joran carefully, uncertain. They had never seen a human act without fear, and they could not understand his calmness. One of the older beasts, a massive creature with horns like twisted metal, lowered its head and sniffed the air. Joran did not flinch. He met its gaze and nodded slightly, silently telling it he was not afraid. Time passed slowly. The chamber seemed endless, the darkness pressing in from every corner. Joran stayed alert, listening to the faint sounds of the night. The eggs pulsed softly like tiny hearts, and he imagined them trusting him already. He adjusted the blanket, ensuring they were comfortable, and hummed a quiet tune his mother had taught him when he was very young. The sound filled the room with warmth, even as the wind screamed outside. Suddenly, the first predator appeared at the doorway. Its eyes gleamed like burning coals, and its sharp teeth glinted in the dim light. It growled low, a sound that made the very air tremble. The royal beasts tensed, ready to attack, or flee, but Joran remained calm. He did not move, did not shout. He simply watched the creature, feeling its power, its hunger, and its fear. The predator stepped closer, its claws scraping the floor. It circled, testing the boy, trying to sense weakness. Joran stayed still, his breathing slow, steady. He knew that if he panicked, the eggs would be lost. Somehow, his calmness unsettled the predator. It hesitated, sniffing the air, unsure of this tiny human who did not run or scream. Slowly, carefully, it backed away and melted into the shadows. Joran allowed himself a small breath of relief, but he did not relax. He knew more would come. And soon. The night was long, and these predators were patient. One by one more appeared. Their growls and claws echoed through the chamber like distant thunder. Each one tested him, each one wanted to see if the human was strong or weak. But Joran stayed close to the eggs, whispering softly, humming, offering warmth and courage where beasts and weapons had failed. Hours passed, and the predators tried again. One massive creature broke through the outer gates, a shadow larger than anything Joran had ever seen. The beasts panicked, some charging forward, some retreating, but Joran remained calm. He moved slowly, using his small size to his advantage. He did not fight with claws or teeth. Instead, he made noise with stones and lantern light, distracting the creature, leading it away from the eggs. Step by careful step, he guided it back to the doorway and out of the chamber. The royal beasts watched in awe. They had never seen this before. A human, so small and seemingly fragile, was keeping the eggs safe. They had relied on power, on strength, on instinct, but Joran relied on something they could not understand. Courage. Patience. A strange connection to life itself. The predator finally left, confused and wary, and the chamber fell silent once again. Joran returned to the eggs and wrapped the blanket more tightly around them. His hands were cold and scraped from stones, but he ignored the pain. He whispered again softly, "You are safe now. I will not leave you." The eggs pulsed gently under his touch, as if acknowledging him, as if they understood that this human meant more than any beast or weapon ever could. Outside, the wind began to die down, and the night grew quieter. The predators had not given up, but they were cautious now. They did not understand the human who faced them without fear. And for the first time, the royal court began to feel hope, even from afar. Joran leaned back against the wall, eyes half closed but fully alert. He knew that the night was far from over. He knew that the greatest challenges were yet to come. But in this moment, beside the royal eggs, a human boy had done what no beast had ever done before. He had stood his ground. He had protected life with courage and care, and the night seemed to pause, waiting to see what would happen next. And somewhere deep in the shadows, the predators watched, curious and cautious, learning for the first time that strength alone could not always win, and that even the smallest, most fragile being could change the fate of the royal lineage. The night dragged on, long and heavy, but Joran did not move from his spot beside the royal eggs. He had learned to listen to the faintest sounds, the scratch of claws on stone, the rustle of distant leaves, the low, hungry growls that came from outside the chamber. Every predator that approached was testing him, trying to find a weakness, but none could break his calm. Unlike the royal beasts, Joran did not rely on strength. He had no claws, no teeth, no enormous body to intimidate an enemy. What he had was something different: patience, observation, and quick thinking. When one predator crept closer than the others, he did not panic. Instead, he quietly picked up a small stone and threw it across the room. The sound echoed loudly, startling the creature. Its head snapped toward the noise, giving Joran a few precious seconds to move slightly and adjust the blanket around the eggs. The royal beast stared, bewildered. They had never seen a human fight in this way. They relied on power, on the instinct to attack. But Joran's way was strange to them. He used clever tricks, timing, and attention. One predator came through the doorway, massive and fierce, teeth bared, ready to strike. Joran did not run. He crouched, eyes sharp, and waited. The creature lunged, but Joran rolled to the side, dodging at the last second. He used the lantern to create shadows that confused the predator, making it hesitate. That moment of hesitation was enough. The predator backed away, frustrated, and left the chamber. Time passed, and the predators continued to circle outside. Joran stayed beside the eggs, whispering to them as he worked. "Stay calm," he said. "I'm right here. Nothing will touch you." The eggs seemed to respond to his voice, their gentle glow pulsing more steadily. He had no proof, no way to explain it, but he felt a connection to them, as if they understood that he was their protector. He noticed small details that no one else had seen. The cracks in the chamber walls, the tiny gaps in the door, the way the predators moved when they were frightened. He adjusted, placing small obstacles in the gaps, making the floor uneven in spots to trip the largest predators, and even moving the lantern to create shadows in the places the creatures might hide. Step by step, he made the chamber safer, using cleverness instead of raw strength. One predator, bigger and older than the rest, tried a new approach. It leapt onto the platform where the eggs lay, claws scraping dangerously close. The royal beast froze, unsure how to act. Joran did not panic. He picked up a length of rope from the supplies he had brought with him and swung it toward the creature's legs. The rope wrapped around one of its claws, slowing it down just enough. It growled in surprise and anger, trying to shake the rope off. Joran did not retreat. He held the rope steady, forcing the predator backward, until it slipped and fell outside the chamber. The beasts watched, fascinated. This human was not strong, but he was clever. He could read the predators, anticipate their moves, and react faster than the strongest creatures in the palace. It was as if he had a gift the others did not, a way to protect without fighting directly, to win without overpowering. Joran understood fear and courage in a way the royal beasts never could. Hours passed and the predators became cautious. They had tried every approach, but the human remained patient, calm, and fearless. He moved only when necessary, always close to the eggs, always protecting them with careful attention. Every time a predator attacked, Joran found a way to redirect it, distract it, or confuse it. Slowly, the night began to turn in his favor. The royal beasts, who had once been arrogant and proud, now watched him with respect. They saw that strength alone could fail, but cleverness and bravery could succeed. Joran did not seek praise. He did not care for glory. He only wanted the eggs to be safe. Yet his actions were teaching the palace a lesson that no one could ignore. Humans, though small and weak in appearance, could do things no alien creature could. By the middle of the night, Joran had grown weary, but he did not let it show. His hands were scraped, his clothes torn, and his muscles ached, but he stayed close to the eggs. When the next predator approached, he calmly rolled a lantern across the floor, creating moving shadows that frightened it. The creature hesitated, snarled, and retreated. Joran whispered softly as if the eggs themselves could hear him, "You're safe now. I will not let anything hurt you." The creatures outside began to withdraw, unsure how to deal with this strange human who did not fight like a beast. They could not understand his calm, clever mind. The palace, which had relied on monsters and weapons, was learning that sometimes the smallest and most unexpected being could be the greatest protector. As the first faint light of dawn touched the sky, Joran finally leaned back against the wall, exhausted but unbroken. The royal eggs were safe, untouched, and still pulsing gently in his presence. The predators had not vanished entirely, but for now they had been held at bay. Joran had survived the night using nothing but his courage, patience, and intelligence. In that quiet moment he realized something remarkable. It was not strength alone that could protect life but heart, mind, and determination. He had shown that even the smallest human could outsmart the strongest alien creatures. And though the night was not yet fully over, the royal eggs had survived because a human had chosen to stay, to watch, and to protect. The royal court would see soon enough that their faith in brute power had been misplaced. The human stable boy, quiet and unassuming, had done what no beast could. The first light of dawn crept over the palace, spilling pale gold across the marble floors. The royal chamber, once filled with fear and tension, was quiet now. Joran leaned back against the wall, exhausted but alert, his hands scraped and sore, his clothes torn. The royal eggs lay before him, safe, their gentle glow pulsing steadily. He had survived the night. Word of what had happened began to spread quickly through the palace. The guards, once confident in the strength of their beasts, whispered among themselves. "The boy, he did it," one said, voice shaking. "He protected the eggs. None of the beasts could, but he stayed." Another guard nodded, eyes wide with awe. Even the royal beasts, proud and powerful, were calmer now. They had watched the human's strange courage, his cleverness, and they had learned something new. Strength alone was not enough. The royal court assembled in the chamber, their expressions a mix of disbelief, shame, and awe. The advisor, who had spoken of curses and failure just the night before, could barely find words. It cannot be," he stammered. "A human boy, and the eggs are safe?" Joran stood slowly, brushing dust from his clothes, his face pale but determined. "I only stayed with them," he said simply. "I watched. I listened. I did not run. That is all." Laughter rippled through the room at first, nervous and incredulous, but it quickly faded as everyone looked at the eggs, untouched, glowing softly in their safe cradle. The court began to realize the truth. The royal beasts, trained and powerful, had failed because they relied on instinct, on raw strength. They did not understand patience. They did not understand care. Joran had protected the eggs not with teeth or claws, but with courage, cleverness, and heart. The king, an imposing figure with scales that gleamed in the morning light, stepped forward. He had been silent all night, watching from a balcony above, and now his eyes were fixed on the boy. "All our finest beasts have failed," the king said slowly. "All our warriors have tried and none have survived. And yet, this human boy, small and unarmed, has kept the royal eggs safe. Tell me, Joran, how did you do it?" Joran bowed his head slightly, unsure how to explain what he had done. "I listened to them," he said quietly. "I watched the predators. I stayed calm. I did not fight like a beast. I just protected them however I could." The court was silent, the weight of the words sinking in. A human had done what no alien creature could. A fragile, small human had achieved the impossible. The royal advisor swallowed hard, embarrassment written across his face. "It seems we underestimated humans," he admitted. The royal beasts, once haughty and proud, approached Joran slowly, their eyes soft. The largest of them, the horned elder, lowered its head to his shoulder. Joran reached out, resting a hand on its massive horn, and the creature nuzzled him gently. Even they seemed to recognize that this human was different. He had courage and understanding that no beast could match. Whispers spread among the courtiers. "The human has a gift," one said. "Not strength but something stronger. A mind that can see, a heart that can protect." Another nodded. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought." The royal eggs pulsed once more, a soft light that seemed to acknowledge Joran. The king looked at the glowing shells, then at the boy. "These eggs are the future of our kingdom," he said solemnly. "Tonight, you have proven that life can be protected not by power alone, but by courage, care, and intelligence. The court owes you its gratitude." Joran felt his cheeks burn with a mixture of pride and embarrassment. He had not sought recognition. He had only wanted to keep the eggs safe. But now, everyone was looking at him differently. They saw a human not as weak or small, but as capable, brave, and remarkable. The predators had retreated beyond the palace walls, cautious now, unsure how to approach the chamber again. Even they seemed to respect the human who had outwitted them. The royal beasts, humbled by the boy's courage, stood quietly, waiting for the next instruction, but also learning that strength alone could fail without thought and heart. The court began to plan a new future. Humans had been underestimated, dismissed as weak and fragile. But Joran had changed everything. He had shown that even the smallest beings could shape the fate of kings and kingdoms. Stories of the night would be told for generations, about the boy who had stayed beside the eggs when every beast had fled, and how his courage had protected the royal bloodline. Joran, tired but steady, knelt beside the eggs once more. "Rest easy," he whispered. "I will stay with you always." He did not yet know what challenges the next night would bring, but he had learned something vital. Fear could be faced, danger could be outsmarted, and even a human could protect life in ways no beast could. As the sunlight grew stronger, filling the chamber with warmth, the court finally understood. It was not brute strength that kept life safe, but heart, patience, and courage. And in that moment, the smallest and most unlikely guardian had changed the future of the kingdom forever. The sun rose higher over the royal palace, spilling warm light across the marble floors and golden halls. The night's terror was over. The predators had retreated, the royal beasts were calm, and the royal eggs lay safe, glowing softly in their cradle. Joran, the small human stable boy, sat beside them, exhausted but alert, his hands scraped and dirty, his clothes torn from the long, tense night. The royal court gathered once more, this time in a mix of awe and respect. The king stepped forward, his scales catching the sunlight. His eyes, once filled with doubt about the boy's abilities, now shone with approval. "Joran," he said, his voice steady, "tonight you have done what no guardian, no beast, no weapon could do. You have protected the royal eggs, and in doing so, you have preserved the future of our kingdom." Joran bowed his head respectfully, unsure how to respond. "I only did what I could," he said softly. "I stayed with them. I watched. I protected them however I could." The court murmured among themselves. Alien nobles, warriors, and advisors exchanged glances, realizing that they had underestimated humans all along. They had judged him by size and strength, thinking him weak, fragile, and incapable. But their assumptions had been wrong. Joran had shown that courage, intelligence, and heart could be stronger than claws, teeth, or brute force. The royal beasts, once proud and arrogant, approached Joran slowly. The horned elder lowered its massive head, nudging him gently as if to show respect. The smaller beasts circled him quietly, their eyes soft. They had learned something important. Strength alone could fail, but understanding, patience, and cleverness could overcome the greatest dangers. Joran, in his quiet way, had taught them this lesson. The eggs pulsed gently under the warm light of morning. Their glow seemed brighter, almost alive with gratitude. Joran reached out and touched the nearest egg, whispering softly, "You are safe now. I will stay with you." He could feel a strange warmth, a connection that went beyond understanding. The eggs were not just objects of life. They seemed to recognize their guardian, their protector, and perhaps even their friend. The royal advisor, who had doubted Joran the most, stepped forward reluctantly. I misjudged you," he admitted. "We all did. Your courage, your patience, your cleverness, no beast could match it. You have shown that even the smallest, most unexpected being can change the fate of the kingdom." Joran nodded quietly, not out of pride but humility. He had never sought recognition. He had only wanted the eggs to survive. And yet, the court's words filled him with a quiet satisfaction. He realized that sometimes, doing the right thing, even if no one believes in you, can be more important than glory or fame. The king approached and placed a hand on Joran's shoulder. "From this day forward," he said, "you shall be the official guardian of the royal eggs. Not as a warrior or a beast, but as a human who understands courage, patience, and care in ways we cannot. You have earned this honor." Joran's eyes widened in surprise, but he bowed deeply. "Thank you, your majesty," he said simply. "I will not fail." The court watched in silence as the royal beasts, humbled by the events of the night, lowered their heads in acknowledgement. They no longer saw Joran as weak or small. They saw him as a protector, a teacher, and a hero. Even the predators, lurking beyond the palace walls, seemed to sense that the human had claimed his place in the order of the kingdom. As the day wore on, Joran continued his duties. He fed the eggs, adjusted their blankets, and remained close to them, ensuring they were safe. The court gradually returned to their normal routines, but now they did so with a newfound respect for humans. Joran had shown them that even beings thought small and weak could rise to greatness. Word of the night's events spread quickly beyond the palace. Stories were told of the tiny human who had protected the royal eggs when every beast had failed. Parents spoke of him to their children. Soldiers shared his tale with recruits. And in the hearts of the people, humans were no longer dismissed as weak or fragile. They were capable of courage, intelligence, and heroism that could rival any creature, alien or otherwise. Joran, for his part, remained humble. He did not seek praise or reward beyond the trust of the eggs themselves. Yet he could feel the shift in the world around him. He had faced danger, outwitted predators, and protected life where others had failed. He had proven that even the smallest and least powerful beings could change the fate of the kingdom. And as the sun rose fully, casting golden light across the palace, Joran smiled softly at the glowing eggs. For the first time he felt a deep sense of belonging. He was no longer just a stable boy. He was a guardian, a protector, a human who had stood where the strongest beasts had failed. Somewhere in the shadows beyond the palace, distant predators watched, cautious and wary. They had learned to respect the human, to fear his cleverness and courage. And the royal beasts, once arrogant and proud, now served not just with strength but with humility, inspired by the boy who had shown them that heart could triumph where power alone could not. The kingdom was safe, the eggs were protected, and a human had earned a place among legends. Joran, the small stable boy, had changed the course of history, not with brute strength but with courage, patience and an unwavering heart.